everyone, it's Samantha, and today I'm going to show you how I make country fried steak with southern style gravy. And I grew up on this. I'm from the South, so this is just a very southern recipe. It is not healthy at all, so I apologize if you like my healthier videos, but this has just been one of my pregnancy cravings lately. I showed a picture of this a week ago on Pinterest and people requested the recipe, so that's why I'm filming it. And I apologize if I sound funny. I did end up catching my husband's little cold thing, so I think I sound kind of weird. Anyway, to make the coating, I have two of these shallow bowls here, and it's best if you have a shallow bowl, but you could totally manage if you have a regular bowl. I got these two shallow bowls, and I'm going to make an egg wash and a flour mixture. For the flour mixture, I just have some all-purpose flour. I used about a cup of it, and I've got some seasoned salt and pepper in there, and you just do this to your own tastes. I used maybe a tablespoon of the seasoned salt and maybe a half a teaspoon or so of the cracked black pepper. Next, I'm going to make my egg wash, and I just crack an egg open in there and then add some milk. So I added maybe half a cup of milk, and then I'm just going to mix it together really, really well. It does take a while to beat the egg enough to incorporate the milk in. So this is going to be our two-part coating mixture. Country fried steak, I always use cube steak, and I go ahead and cut this down into maybe quarter pieces. And when I get it cut, there's two ways to batter it. You can start with the egg mixture and then coat it in the flour mixture. And you want to do this 2 times so you get a nice coating. You can just see I'm pressing the coating into each piece just a little bit because the cube steak does have all the holes in it. So you want to make sure you're coating it really nicely. So I dipped it in twice to make sure I got everything completely coated. I'm going to set this aside. I go ahead and batter all of them at the same time just to get it done. And so option number 2 is to skip the first egg wash step. Just go straight to the flour the first time. And I really don't notice a difference either option. So I just skip the first egg dip and just go flour, egg, back to the flour, and that's my dipping process. So I'm just going to dip all the rest of these pieces, and I do cut the steak up because we do not eat the whole steak the first time. We usually have at least enough for my husband to have lunch the next day between the 2 big cube steaks. I also find that the smaller pieces cook more evenly and quicker, so it's just easier to cook them that way. I'm just going to go ahead and batter all these up, and then we'll get frying. Once you're done battering all your pieces of steak, go ahead and discard the egg wash, but hold on to the flour. We're going to use that for the gravy in a little while. I have my oil heating up over medium. It's about a 5 on my temperature thing, but it ended up being too hot because I let it sit there and get really hot. So my first ones ended up cooking really, really fast and got a lot browner than I had hoped on the outside. And you see I flipped them really, really quick. You generally only need to preheat your oil for a minute or 2 just to start getting it warm and enough to make it start simmering, but I had it sitting there a while I was getting everything ready, so it did get too hot. I did end up turning it down so that the next ones wouldn't cook that hot. These ones ended up cooking too fast, so I left them in there to finish up cooking. They weren't done in the middle. They were really dark on the outside. Thankfully, nothing burned, but they were darker than I had anticipated. So for this next batch, I just put them in a couple of minutes on the lower temperature, and I just let them lightly brown around the edges before I flip them, and that's when you know they're getting cooked enough on each side. And then you just flip them and cook them on the other side for a couple of minutes until you have a nice golden brown coating. So I just do a couple of pieces in the pan at a time, and since there's only 2 of us, it only takes me like 2 batches, but if you're cooking these for a large number of people, you can preheat your oven on like 175 or 200 degrees and then put your steaks in the oven to keep them warm while you're cooking the other batches. And as I'm waiting for this to cook, I'm also double tasking. I'm making my husband's potato. He's having an herb baked potato, so I'm getting that ready while I'm waiting for these to cook. So these only take a couple of minutes per side, and if you're worried about the doneness, you can always cut one of them open and check on it and see if it's done. I've done this so many times I can kind of eyeball that they're done in the middle just by the way they look on the outside. So when you're done, take them out. I have them on a paper towel so that some of the oil drains off and you're not left with all that oil, and it also keeps them crispier when you drain off some of that oil. They don't get soggy. So there is the finished country fried steak. Now it's time to make the gravy. So I'm going to take this skillet and drain out most of the oil. I just left a little bit, and for this one I'm making a mushroom gravy. So I'm going to saute some mushrooms first, and if you don't want mushroom gravy, you can totally omit this step and skip adding the butter later. And as you can see, the mushrooms absorbed most of that oil, so they are going to really flavor this gravy when I'm done. So I'm just going to give them a good saute, get them out of there, and I'm left with not very much oil in the pot, so I grab a tablespoon of butter. I'm just going to melt that down. And then we're going to make a roux. So I'm waiting for the butter to completely melt before I add in my flour, and I'm going to have my whisk here ready to go. I still have the pan over medium, and I'm going to grab like a tablespoon or two of the flour, and this is how you make a roux. You need a fat, so you can use oil or butter or the grease that was left over from that, and then flour, and I'm just going to whisk these two things together. And I only do this, it literally takes 1 minute. So you just want to cook off that floury flavor and make sure you're stirring the whole time with this. It does get a little bit darker, but that's what you want. That gives you the brown gravy color. So if you're worried about burning it, you can always set a timer, and I literally stirred this for 1 minute. I checked the recording times. It's about 1 minute, and I just stirred it, and I kind of eyeballed it. I wanted it to be like a lighter brown color. If you want a darker gravy, you can stir it longer and let it get a little bit browner. I'm just constantly stirring it, and as you can tell, it's slowly getting a little bit darker. And also you want to have your milk handy. I forgot to say that. I have the milk sitting to the side. You can't see it off camera. So now it's time to add in the milk. So I grabbed that real quick. I have it close by so I'm not wasting a lot of time. And here you can turn down your stove top to medium-low. You don't want to scorch the milk, but you do want to have this simmering so it starts thickening up. So you're going to whisk it together and get one combined mixture. It takes a minute to actually get all the flour incorporated in with the milk, and then it'll start to bubble around the edges, and that's how you know it's starting to cook together, and it will start thickening up. And again, I'm putting this on real time because it took like 2 minutes to finish the gravy. You can see it's starting to thicken up a little bit because it's starting to simmer. And again, I'm just stirring constantly. If it starts to get too thick, you can always add in more milk. I turned my temperature down finally because it was starting to simmer a little bit too much for me. So I'm just stirring it. I ended up needing more milk. It did get too thick. So you can always just add more milk if it's too thick, and if it's too thin, you just let it simmer a little bit longer until it thickens up. So next, I'm just going to add in my mushrooms after I get it to the consistency I like. I also want to note that I used some of that reserved flour mixture. It already had salt and pepper in it. My dog's over here dreaming, so you might hear her making noise. But this is where you can add in more flavor. So you can do parsley, garlic powder, onion powder, more salt and pepper to taste. So this is really where you get a chance to flavor it up. Since I'm using those mushrooms, that's plenty of flavor between that and the salt and pepper. And that is my dog dreaming. It sounds so funny. Anyway, so I add in my mushrooms, and now the gravy is ready. You just serve it immediately. It will thicken up once you start taking it off the heat. So just keep that in mind that you want to make this at the last minute. All in all, this gravy took me like 4 minutes to make, so it's just something you whip up at the very end right before you're ready to eat. And I just wanted you to see, I'm stirring it and showing you guys how thick the gravy is. So the gravy is one of the last steps I do before it's time to eat. So here is my portion. I just got 3 of the pieces with some gravy over it, and then I made some garlic and herb mashed potatoes, which I will talk about in a different video coming up soon. And then my husband doesn't do the gravy, that's why I added mushrooms. He doesn't like mushrooms. So he's got the baked potato with herbs on it, and then some southern style green beans, which I'll talk about both of those also in a video coming up. So there's the leftover portions. He's going to have those for lunch. And that is it for this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye!